Eddie, a new year means new set of shows. We're just going to run through the upcoming Matchroom schedule for January and February. We're going to start off not with a Matchroom show, but with a show with interest over in Quebec, Canada on the 13th of January. Callum Smith looks to dethrone Artur Beterbiev. You've been very vocal in saying you believe Mundo gets him out there.
Yeah, you know when you can just see it, you know. I mean, I remember when Callum Johnson fought Artur Beterbiev years ago. It was actually our first ever Matchroom Boxing USA show on DAZN.
In Chicago, wasn't it?
Yeah, and he dropped Beterbiev with the left hook. I can just, every time I think about this fight, you know, as Callum does, just catch, counter, I can see him knocking out Artur Beterbiev out cold in Quebec. It's a tough task, but I really believe he's going to do it. And, you know, people give him a good shot in that fight, and I do. I really believe Callum Smith will beat Beterbiev and become the unified heavyweight, light heavyweight world champion, two-division world champion as well. Can't wait to be there. And, you know, it's one of those nights where you go and get victory over there, and it's just one that you really remember.
Yeah, obviously a tough ask, Beterbiev, 100% KO ratio, but injuries are racking up in the last couple of years. And age.
You know, I mean, had to pull out the first fight. You know, saw him against Yard, obviously very good fighter, but just started to show a few signs. You know, I think he can be hurt, but a big danger. And Callum's got to get it spot on, but I believe he'll do it.
And his third fight at light heavyweight, Callum, the previous two have been devastating finishes.
Yeah, I mean, his two fights at light heavyweight, obviously against opposition, not to the levels of Beterbiev, but iced them. And he can really punch. You know, he was at 168 for a long time, struggling to make the weight. So this is a big shootout in Quebec.
2 weeks later, January 27th, a doubleheader, starting off in Belfast. Lewis Crocker against Jose Felix, who of course beat Gary Cully back in May. A dangerous fight for Crocker.
Oh, I mean, look, I watched Lewis Crocker against Tyrone McKenna. I love what I saw. You know, I mean, firstly, McKenna, far too brave for his own good, and we wish him the best in retirement. But I love the way that Crocker puts his punches together. It's like watching a 147-pound Gennady Golovkin. You know, the variation, the way he turns his knuckles over, and, you know, when you get a fighter at that stage in his career, in that position, who basically turns around and says, I will fight anyone, right? I love it. Because you're talking about a young, undefeated fighter that I believe can go on and be a big star in Belfast. And, you know, we had that slot on Jan 27, and I wanted to make a really competitive fight. Jose Felix, the guy that obviously, you know, broke the hearts of Gary Cully and Irish fans when he knocked him out on the Katie Taylor card, I wasn't so sure that they'd take it. Bang, straight away, Jose Felix perfectly. It is an absolute war, that fight. You know, two big punchers, two explosive fighters that like to trade. It's a brilliant, brilliant fight. And co-main event on that card, of course, Chev Clark making a trip as the A side, but very much the B side, if you like, in terms of support, going into Tommy McCarthy's backyard. I think it's a brilliant cruiserweight fight as well. Paddy Donovan on the card will be in a big fight. Sean McComb in a big fight as well. Back to Belfast, a lot quicker than we expected, but a brilliant card to kick us off.
And should Chev come through Tommy McCarthy, is the British title next?
Yeah, I mean, he's mandatory for Isaac Chambers. Like, they won't fight him. You know, it's not Isaac, but they won't let him fight Chev Clark. So what we're not doing is sitting around letting Chev's career be disrupted. We're staying active, but he's staying active in a real fight. You know, Tommy McCarthy, former European champion. We've seen him in great fights. It's a brilliant test for Chev. I think Chev will go on and become a world champion. And I'm glad he took this fight because it shows his intentions, and it's a really good fight.
Later that night, Johnny Ryder goes over to Phoenix to fight Jaime Munguia on the Golden Boy show, also on DAZN. Straight back into the fight for John Ryder.
It's a massive night for us to kick off, you know, and I don't know where I'm going to be because I love that Belfast show, but also I love Johnny Ryder, and I really believe he beats Jaime Munguia, who is all action, so exciting, but that's a massive fight for Johnny, you know, coming off the Canelo fight, which he did so well in. You know, once he got his confidence in that fight, he started to really perform down the stretch, and he'll go into this fight with a lot of confidence. And I'm just so pleased Johnny Ryder's getting what he deserves out of the sport. You know, another big payday for him, but more importantly, an opportunity. He wins that fight. You know, you can imagine the fights he could be in with Benavidez, you know, Caleb Plant, Charlo, Belanga. Like, it's just a massive night for him, and, you know, the team very confident.
A week later, Tony Sims in action again. Conor Benn headlines in Las Vegas against Pistol Pete Dobson. Third time lucky for Dobson, who's obviously due to fight Ajako and Pat McCormack. Just talk to us about this fight.
Yeah, I mean, Pete Dobson is like 16-0. No one really wants to fight him, and then gets matched against Ajako, Kevin had to pull out with injury, gets matched against McCormack pulls out with injury. And then obviously we're 5 weeks away from the date. We got messed around by Chris Eubank, and I wanted Conor Benn to fight on that date. We looked at the possible opponents. Conor wanted it slightly heavier in weight. He's fighting a big, strong 154-pounder in Dobson. And, he talks a lot, Dobson. It's going to be a great build-up. You've got 18-0 against 16-0. This is going to be part of a really busy period for Conor Benn. We want him to fight on February the 3rd, then go straight back into another fight in April, and then fight again in the summer. So we're already in talks for some big names in April, but he's got to come through Dobson. We want to keep him nice and busy. And that fight particularly is going to be a lot of fun because we're going to do it earlier in the day in Las Vegas. It's going to be a late afternoon fight. It's going to be on UK time for UK fight fans. And we're going to have a lot of fun in Vegas for UK fight fans travelling as well. There's going to be some big name Brits on the card as well. So pack your suitcases, get ready for Conor Benn, February the 3rd in Las Vegas.
You mentioned Eubank then. Is that completely dead in the water for now?
For now, but once he realises what his other options are and what the money is for those options, I think he'll be back to discuss. But we're not waiting around for Chris Eubank. We want to keep Conor nice and busy, and that will start February the 3rd in Las Vegas. You mentioned
there's strong British interest on the undercard, but also Austin Ammo Williams fights Conor Coyle.
Yeah, really good fight.
Fight that one, and Ammo's closing on a world title himself.
Yeah, it's going to be a WBA eliminator. Big fight for the Irishman, Conor Coyle. And Ammo Williams has looked fantastic. Again, a guy that will fight anybody. Yeah, so Brits, pack your suitcases for that, because not just Conor Benn as well, but Johnny Fisher, the Romford Bull, will be fighting on the undercard in his American debut in Las Vegas with the Romford Bull Army. And Jimmy Sains as well, the popular puncher from Essex, will be out there, and possible other additions from the Tony Sims camp as well. So, we do an early afternoon show, straight out after. It's going to be a hell of a trip.
Back in Newcastle the following week, Feb 10, Cyrus Pattinson goes straight back into action against Conor Walker. Some people may question why Cyrus has taken this rematch, considering the way the first fight went.
Listen, this was one of my fights of the year. It was unbelievable. And the rematch is going to be exactly the same in terms of its competitiveness and how thrilling that fight will be. I think you have to take this rematch. If Cyrus wants to be at the level that we expected his amateur pedigree to translate to in the pros, he has to be beating people like Conor Walker, who is a very, very good fighter. But, that first fight, I think he expected to go through him, and he couldn't. And Conor Walker was brilliant. We did it in Conor Walker's backyard in the Midlands. Now we're going to do it in Newcastle. Big next-gen show. Cameron Bong in a big step up against Ishmael Ellis as well. Another really good card up there. A lot of additions coming, and a massive night for Cyrus Pattinson. Really fighting for his career that night on our next-gen card.
Just a few weeks ago, Adrian Curiel upset the odds, knocked out Sivenathi Nontshinga to win the IBF World Light Flyweight title. They do it again on Friday the 16th of February, this time in Mexico. That's mouth-watering.
Yeah, one of the shocks of the year, if you like, Nontshinga, who has been sort of back-to-back Fight of the Year contenders, gets knocked out clean by Curiel in Monaco. And it was a massive win for Mexican boxing. And Nontshinga, who had the rematch clause, wants to run it straight back. Very dangerous, and not just running it back, but going into Curiel's home country. But we've seen him before come through a firefight in Mexico, and that's going to be a thriller on February the 16th.
Sonny Edwards has put his name in the hat to fight the winner. Is that a realistic?
Yeah, I think with Bam moving up, some of those belts could become vacant at flyweight. But also, Sonny's talked about the possibility of maybe moving down to 108, or maybe even moving up to 115. So we'll have to see, but I want Sonny back in for a world title in his next fight.
The night after that rematch is the undisputed world heavyweight title fight between Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury. You've had a lot to say in the months that sort of lent into this moment. Who do you think wins that fight?
I think Tyson Fury wins the fight. It all depends on if what we saw in the Ngannou fight was just him not taking it seriously, or if it was him in decline, he's going to have a tough night against Usyk. I think he's going to be too big in that fight. If he's switched on, if he trains properly, which you'd expect him to do and be, I expect him to win. But you can't rule out Alexander Usyk. It's a tremendous heavyweight clash. Another massive fight in Saudi Arabia, and great for the heavyweight division and great for boxing that we're seeing that undisputed fight.
The week after that, Edgar Berlanga and Paddy McCrory go to war, two unbeaten super middleweights in Orlando. The winner of that goes closer to a world title shot.
Yeah, look, if you know your boxing, if you know Paddy McCrory, the amount of people that I've spoken to about that fight is just like, oh my goodness, someone is going to sleep in that fight. You know, McCrory is a huge puncher. He tells me he's 100% winning that fight. Edgar Berlanga needs a statement. It's a real dangerous fight for both. You know, they called it shootout. It really is two massive punchers, and the winner is going to put themselves in an unbelievable. You know, could fight the winner of Munguia Ryder, could fight Beterbiev, could fight Canelo Alvarez. You know, massive fight for both.
That takes us up to the end of February. You started planning beyond that already?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, we've got fights that we want to make in terms of, obviously, Katie Taylor's next fight, which will be outdoors in Ireland. You got Curiel Taylor, which we're trying desperately to make. Potential Wood Warrington rematch at the City Ground as well. Obviously, see what happens with Anthony Joshua at the weekend. So much more to come, and you know, we want next year to be even better than this year, which will be difficult, but big plans ahead. And
into new markets like Japan as well?
For sure, you know, that's going to be in March. A lot of rumours about the format for that show will be revealed soon, and a lot of international activity in new markets, and obviously focusing on our bread and butter as well.
Well, Eddie, thanks very much. We look forward to it.
Cheers.
Cheers.